Kehinde Andrews is one of the pioneers in the area of black studies and making that a degree that is possible for undergrads to study. He is an author of a book called Back to Black, which is renownedly known, has done some amazing work in our field, and he's going to be talking to us today and doing our keynote speech. So can we have a massive round of applause for Professor Kehinde?
All right, that's loud. Okay, so everybody all right? Yeah. You okay? I've got the clock as well. I was 15 minutes or 10 minutes? 10 minutes, 15? 10? I do 10. I can do it in 10. It's fine. All right, so, I want to start off with a disclaimer. If you've heard me speak before, you've probably heard me say this before. It's going to start negative, but I promise you it will end positively, okay? The reason it's going to start negative is the first bit of the talk is why I want to leave academia, right? Which is kind of opposite of what we're supposed to be doing. But I promise you, like I said, it's gonna end positively. Black studies is the positive end for this talk. And why? I mean, look, you probably know the statistics around staff, around students. Look, I've become professor, right? So I know. I can tell you all these terrible stories, microaggressions, actual aggressions, problems, it's a grind, and it wears you down to the point where at some point, it's just really tiring, right? And I spend a lot of time going around talking to students, postgraduate level, undergraduate level, talking to staff, and just saying, you know what, you just got to deal with it, because that's what it is. Right? And it doesn't really get any better, and you do genuinely have to work twice as hard to get half as far. And it really is it's terrible, right? In many ways, it's terrible. To the point where when I got made professor, I had a crisis. Everybody's celebrating, and I'm like, what are you celebrating for? Serious. You know, when I got my professorship, I put the letter on Twitter, and it was like, everybody's celebrating. I was like, look at the details. Who signed the letter for my professorship? It was the head of the university, the vice chancellor, and it was the head of faculty. Guess what they have in common? Two white men, right? Exactly, right? So if you think about what we're trying to do to get to these levels in academia, you're looking for white approval. That's why I don't use the title professor very often. That's a white approval. That's not from our people, right? It's good for me, I get paid more, thankfully. But you know, in terms of an accolade that means something to us and our struggle, it's meaningless, honestly meaningless, right? So, like I said, I want to leave. I am actually at the point where I'm saying, well, actually, is this the place to be, right? Other reason why I have to say that is because, you know, going through these journeys and trying to get to where we're trying to get to and trying to build community, what you realize is that because the university is what it is, it often does things to us as well, right? We're trying to get, there's this idea of the crab in a barrel, right? We're trying to get tough. It's all about individualism, neoliberalism. I'm going to get mine. And every time you get one little step, it's like someone trying to drag you down. Even when you try to pull people up, they're still trying to drag you down by the hand. Seriously, right? Sorry. Oh, am I trailing like
Yeah, just clip it back on.
Good. Sorry, didn't know.
No worries, man.
I was in the flow, so I got it. Cool. We good? All right, so yeah, even when you're trying to pull people up, you're still getting dragged down. And it's one of those things where if you look at, so we started Black Studies, and if you look at Black Studies in America, what happened was it very quickly became part of the furniture of academia. Like it started out, it's going to be radical, it's going to be revolutionary, it's going to be this thing that changes the university. And you go there now, and honestly, and I've got a lot of friends in America, so I say this cautiously, if you actually look at what Black Studies is, it's become African American studies, which often just looks a lot like history, or looks a lot like psychology. It's just got black faces doing white stuff, right? That's why when we think about being black in academia, it really isn't enough to just be black in academia. Because the problem with academia is academia. It is the system of it, it's how it works, it's the bubble it creates. Like I said before, track back to how I got professor. The things that got me professor were not working in the community, we're not doing anything that makes anything better for our people. It was literally writing for white approval inside this bubble. That's what academia is. And if all we're going to do is enter these spaces and do the same things that white academia does, there's really no point. We should have stopped now. Leave, go away, do something else, honestly. So, again, the reason I say all of this, I'm going to end positively, promise, is because it just gets to a point where all of the grind from the white academia, then all of the grind from other black academics, it just becomes a bit much, all right? And so this is a lesson I'm going to give to you, because one of the things that's kept me in, why didn't I leave? That's the question. The real reason why didn't I leave, what do you think it is? Money. That's exactly what it is. It's too good. Money's too good, right? So that's money. The second reason that I didn't leave is because of the students, right? And not just any students, Black Studies students. Honestly, I'll be honestly say this, the Black Studies students are really, I mean, money aside, the only thing that has made the last couple of years worthwhile. Because when we started Black Studies, we really put out this, let's do something different, right? Let's do something that is what we call the science of liberation. Let's really try and actually have a just different approach to the way that we do academia. And it's brought in these students, who many of whom never would have gone to university, who just thought, what's that university, it's not for me, and have come in. We've got like mature students, older students, like 60 years old, and really coming in to say, look, I want to learn this. I don't just want to learn this. The point of Black Studies, again, is not just to do what you would usually do with a black face, it's actually to do things differently, right? So one of the key principles of Black Studies is the idea of having a community component, right? And that community component really is saying, let's burst the bubble of academia. What's the problem with academia? The problem with academia is that it's separate space, right? Where how many of you have been into a university if you weren't studying there, working there, or someone's trying to get you to go there, so they're advertising it to you? And how many times how many of you actually been in the university just to be in the university? 1, 2, 3, right? You know who pays for universities? You do, they're public buildings, even today, right? All these, you talk about loans and fees and all that stuff, none of you pay back the fees, right? So this is publicly funded institutions and nobody goes into them, right? You think about the journal articles that get you promoted, who reads them? Nobody. You can't read them because they're you can't access them. Even if you could access them, believe me, you would not want to read them. Right? So why would you waste your time? Right? So that's the problem with academia, right? So the community component is really important. They're saying, actually, let's change what that is. Who are we writing for? So when we talk about Black Studies, it's about the science of liberation. The point of the work isn't for the bubble of academia. The point of the work is to actually improve what happens in our lives off campus. That's the purpose of it, right? And that means a different way of thinking about the work that we're doing. It means a different way of doing the work that we're doing. It means a different audience for the work that we're doing as well, right? And that totally transforms everything that we talk about and think about within the space. So as much as Black Studies is about the students, it's about degrees, it's about jobs, it's actually more about creating a space where we can bring in the community onto campus and do things differently. So the first thing we do with Black Studies is just have community. You come to BCU, it's just bare community all the time for different variety of different things, programs, etc., right? Second thing about Black Studies, which is transformational, I think, and I only got 2 minutes, so I'm gonna have to pick one out of many. So the second thing about Black Studies, which is transformational, it's how do you do that, right? So what we don't do a lot of the time is give our activism, our work, our community work, the kind of credibility that we should. So we kind of say, just go and do stuff and it's fine. As long as you're doing something, it's okay, right? Actually, if you look back historically, study was always massively important in terms of how organizations worked, right? It was about, actually, maybe we try and do this, we try and do that, that doesn't work. It's rooted in all this theory, that theory, etc. We've kind of forgot that, right? So actually, one of the things that's been really powerful with the students is to have students who come in, and many of those students have been worked in schools before, or they've worked in activism, or they worked with the police. You know, I know, right? They work with the police, which is a sore point for me, but anyway, we carry on. They work with the police, and lots of different things, right? But actually, when they come in and reflect on how they've done that, by looking back at what's happened previously, what's going on, looking at the bigger picture of society, it has actually transformed what they do, right? So when I say I stay in the university because of the students, it's genuine. Seeing the transformation of the students, seeing how they've applied things like black feminism, for example, right? We actually had this Rasta student, female student, really involved in activism, had never thought about patriarchy, inequality around sexuality, never thought about it. Came in like, right? And now she's leading the charge of all this, and that completely fundamentally changed how she thinks about things and how she applies her practice, right? That's the power of Black Studies, right? So also, it's not just about activism. If you want to do other things, that's fine as well. But it's about saying, let's have a different shape of how we understand what the world is. So yeah, that's the other reason I haven't left, right? For me, Black Studies is kind of an experiment. Can you do really, truly black work within the institution? Because if you're honest, if you go to any other place in the institution, it's very difficult to do it because of the way the bubble works, because how it is. And so what we try to do is create a space that can genuinely be based on the experiences, contributions, perspectives of the African diaspora and put this into practice, right? And that can be practiced in many different ways, in schools, in law, and et cetera, et cetera. So one of the things, so I'm not leaving the university, I say that now. Well, not yet, anyway, because one of the things the university has been quite supportive of is of Black Studies. And so because of that, we're starting a master's in 2020, another undergraduate program. Thank you. Another undergraduate program, Black Studies in Criminal Justice, because the police and courts are so terrible. And so, it's growing. It's an area that's growing and hopefully can really do something different. I mean, that's the message I will give to you. It really is not enough to be Black in academia. And now we're in this position where there's more of us coming in. We have to be making sure that we're doing things differently. If you're just doing the same old thing, then don't bother. But if we can do something that fundamentally transforms how this works, and the other thing about being an academic is it's privilege. How much privilege we have, access to resources, money, etc., etc. And few of us who got in there before, unfortunately, haven't used it the way we should have used it. So now we've got a critical mass. That's the challenge I put to all of you, right? Is how do we get into these positions and leverage the hell out of them so that we can actually make our lives better? And that's the point of Black Studies. Thank you.